he's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing. But it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood. And, you know, and I think also, you know, he famously, there's some videos of him in blackface, and those came out, and he had apologized for them, and I think he took that hit and like really doubled down the other direction.
Jimmy Kimmel's a loser. I do Jimmy Kimmel. I did him a lot.
Yeah.
And he'd be standing on the sidewalk. Oh, sir, may I bring you in? He'd bring me in every time. The whole show is talking bad about Trump.
He called us doofuses when we had you on.
He's a group of doofuses in flat-brimmed hats.
Guess what? We
Ask him how many.
what he did.
Ask him. Yeah, you do bigger. Yeah, you do. His show's dying.
Jimmy Kimmel just got slapped with a jaw-dropping $500 million lawsuit. And not by just anyone. President Trump himself dropped the legal bomb. The fallout? Absolute gold for Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly. They didn't waste a second tearing him apart. Rogan lit up Kimmel like a washed-up comic bombing on open mic night. Meanwhile, Megyn sliced through the Hollywood ego with the precision of a cold steel scalpel. This wasn't commentary. This was demolition.
I mean, I struggle to even mention that guy's name. He's such an absolute, I can't stand him. But anyway, it's just my thought bubble out loud. We took a look at some of their reactions to the news of Trump's win. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO.
From Kimmel's over-the-top virtue signaling to the lawsuit that blindsided him. This wasn't just a takedown. It was a televised implosion. The guy who used to strut around late night like some moral compass was now caught off guard, flailing on air like he finally realized the joke's on him. And this wasn't some behind-the-scenes legal squabble. No, this was front-page warfare. Rogan laughed so hard, it was like watching him witness a kangaroo knock out a bodybuilder. And Megyn? Cool as ever, just laying out the facts like evidence in a courtroom. Then came the stunner. Trump, still in the ring, hit Kimmel with a $500 million legal punch. Rogan's response, wait, this is real? Yeah, it is, and it's just getting started.
You know how much it costs to produce Jimmy Kimmel's show? I guarantee you it's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News.
This isn't entertainment anymore. It's legal combat in primetime. Forget cease and desist letters. Trump launched a $500 million haymaker, and Rogan was already losing it before finishing the headline. He leaned back, eyes wide, cracking up like he just watched a street fight between a house cat and a semi-truck. Kimmel, the guy known for taking easy swings behind a safety net, finally poked the bear. The bear with executive power and a legal team built for war. Rogan dove right in, calling it poetic karma. Jimmy wasn't edgy. He was reckless. And now, the same guy who mocked Trump every night is finding out what it feels like to get punched back. And hard.
There's not a chance in hell that this is funny or gonna work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter, so a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to applaud. They're like, okay, explaining to the people, okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right.
Rogan called it out directly. Kimmel thought his desk made him bulletproof. Like somehow sitting behind a teleprompter turns insults into invisible punches. But nah, that spotlight doesn't protect, it exposes. Joe compared Jimmy's bravado to a chihuahua barking orders at a SWAT team. Noisy nonstop, but absolutely ignorable. And now, That yapping has a $500 million invoice attached. Rogan trashed the late-night jokes too, calling them safe, bland, and the kind of stuff that makes a room full of interns laugh just enough to keep their jobs. Then came the gut punch. Jimmy still thinks he's the cool kid at the cafeteria table. Joe wasn't holding back. "You're not a rebel," he said. "You're a corporate puppet with a fake laugh track." And those Trump roasts? Rogan said they're like tossing pebbles at a freight train and pretending you stopped it. That's not satire. That's delusion.
And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced, darning socks Oprah. Now, if you are of the left, that's fine. If you are of the right and happen to just say, hey, people used to wear blackface and nobody freaked out about it, you get fired.
And here's the twist. The audience isn't clapping anymore. That nightly smugness that earned applause? Now it's earning subpoenas. Rogan imagined Jimmy panicking behind the scenes, calling lawyers, scrubbing YouTube clips like a teenager erasing browser history. But this lawsuit isn't just about money. Joe said it's psychological warfare. Trump doesn't want to win the case. He wants to live rent-free in Jimmy's head forever. Rogan joked that Kimmel's probably pacing the halls, muttering about defamation laws and Googling courtroom fashion tips at 2 a.m. And here's the killer line. The guy who made his living mocking others just got rocked by someone who finally punched back. And not just anyone, the president.
Horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel, whose blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
What really cracked Joe up? Kimmel actually thought he was starting a revolution. Rogan's response? Bro, you're not Jon Stewart. And even Jon would have told you to rewrite that script. As Rogan wrapped the segment, he tossed one more jab. This lawsuit might be the most entertaining thing to ever happen to Kimmel's show. Let's be honest, when's the last time anyone talked about Jimmy Kimmel Live without cringing? Meanwhile, over on her end, Megyn Kelly wasn't laughing. She was dissecting. Calm, sharp, and deadly. She's seen this act before. To her, this wasn't a meltdown. This was justice. She called it. The clown crossed the line, and the king stopped laughing.
Tucker's numbers were 3 times what Jimmy Kimmel gets. And Tucker's little basement video that he did from clearly like his cabin that he broadcasts out of Maine in literally has 21 million views. Okay? 21 million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free, that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults because he looks a little sick.
Megyn laid it bare. Kimmel's biggest mistake wasn't the jokes. It was believing the cheers from a warmed-up studio crowd actually meant something. He thought sarcasm made him a revolutionary, when really, he was just reciting watered-down punchlines dressed up as bravery. Megyn said it flat. His comedy wasn't risky. It was a lullaby, forgettable, predictable. The only real danger was viewers falling asleep mid-monologue. And now, the illusions shattered. Kimmel's punchlines got him slapped with a lawsuit, and no one's clapping anymore. She didn't stop at comedy. Megyn turned the knife on the fantasy bubble late-night hosts live in, the myth that mocking powerful people makes you immune to consequences. Jimmy built a brand on roasting Trump like it was harmless fun. But as Megyn reminded everyone, Trump isn't just a TV target. He's a man with a legal war chest and a grudge. Mocking him from a safe studio wasn't brave. It was as bold as yelling at your own reflection. Now the tables have turned, and the cost of those cheap shots? Sky high. Megyn imagined Kimmel and his writers hiding in the green room, desperately rewriting monologues to avoid another courtroom disaster. It's like watching a magician try to pull a rabbit out of a hat, only the hat's been confiscated for evidence.
The problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic to the point where, the Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, your pronouns are ass and hole, which is pretty funny. But then,
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns. So they were chiding him.
But Megyn wasn't done. She aimed straight at the heart of Hollywood itself. Kimmel wasn't just some funny guy with a mic. He was the poster child of a media machine built on smug applause and fake moral high ground. She said they love to dish it out, but panic the second someone hits back. When Trump fires back, it's suddenly a national emergency. But when Jimmy took his nightly swings, that was just jokes. She exposed the double standard and called it exactly what it is, hollow. And then she landed the line that said it all. Honestly, this lawsuit might be the best thing that's happened to Jimmy in years. At least now people are watching.
How weak and pathetic is a guy like that? The Tonight Show, which is dying. They're all dying. Where's Johnny Carson? Bring back Johnny. It made you appreciate, right, Uncle Sam? It made you appreciate the greatness of Johnny Carson. I go on his show, and he goes, is that your real hair? I said, yeah. He said, do you mind if I mess it up? So he grabs it, and he starts really going crazy, right? And everybody laughed, and it was a big thing, and it was a big hit. It was all over the place, and he got great ratings and all. And 6 months later, he went out because he was under pressure to apologize because he humanized.
And here's where it gets cold. Megyn reminded everyone, this isn't a bit. This isn't a segment. This is $500 million reel. She joked Kimmel might have to start selling his desk mugs, vintage Man Show DVDs, or even hit up some old celebrity pals for cash just to keep his lights on. Then came the real message. This wasn't about silencing Jimmy. This was about setting a precedent. Trump didn't just want a legal win. He wanted to shut the door on smug celebrity jabs with zero accountability. If you're going to take shots at the king, she said, you better land one. But Kimmel? He missed so badly. It looked like a blindfolded toddler throwing darts at a tank. As the dust settled, Joe and Megyn stood in stunned agreement, two totally different voices, united in disbelief. Because this wasn't just a lawsuit. This was the most expensive roast in TV history.
Last night was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Several people shared in this achievement. Winner number one, Jimmy Kimmel. For the fourth time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface.
Rogan delivers the final blow with a post-presidency glow-up. Obama, now a global influencer with a podcast and a production company, lectures the masses on responsibility from the terrace of his oceanfront mansion. It's like watching someone who sold their soul for applause now sell motivational merch to their old fan base. You don't get to warn people about rising seas while sipping cocktails on a property inches above high tide. Greg doesn't skip the topic of race either. Obama had the chance to bring Americans together, to heal wounds, to prove we could be post-racial. Instead, he sprinkled division like Parmesan cheese over every issue. Gutfeld imagines him giving speeches like a philosopher, then ghostwriting the handbook for Twitter mobs. It wasn't about progress. It was about branding anyone who disagreed as morally defective, using poetic guilt as policy. Disagree with his healthcare plan? Congratulations, you were suddenly 3/5 of a citizen. Rogan doesn't ignore the arrogance, either the smug grin, the professor's stare. It wasn't confidence. It was the political version of an eye roll. Rogan calls it Harvard swagger, where the IQ is assumed and the accountability is outsourced. When it came to criticism, Obama's skin was thinner than the economic recovery line in 2010.
Nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah, the creativity's gone for late night comedy.
Jimmy Kimmel just got slapped with a jaw-dropping $500 million lawsuit. And not by just anyone. President Trump himself dropped the legal bomb. The fallout? Absolute gold for Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly. They didn't waste a second tearing him apart. Rogan lit up Kimmel like a washed-up comic bombing on open mic night. Meanwhile, Megyn sliced through the Hollywood ego with the precision of a cold steel scalpel. This wasn't commentary. This was demolition.